It was an unusually calm day for Mars. Scarcely a particle of sand floated in the thin air, and nowhere was the horizon tinged with the red that generally heralded a desert sandstorm. Two space-suited figures, both holding clicking Geiger counters, were painstakingly slipping and sliding through the treacherous sands, making ever-widening circles around a small spaceship. "I think we're almost on top of it, Jim." The tallest and oldest of the men barked into his radio transmitter. He cursed through a week's growth of beard as he slid and almost fell in slippery red dust. "The thing that bothers me," the younger man said, "is that the radiation seems rather weak for an important deposit of uranium." The older man didn't answer. The stepped-up tempo of his instrument told its own story. There was a whirring sound. Suddenly a section of sand, almost under their feet, began to cave in. "What the hell?" the older man shouted as he made an impressive backward leap of almost 15 feet, made possible by the fact that a man weighs less than 40% as much on Mars as he does on Earth. There was a swirl of red dust, and a V-shaped snout emerged from the sand, followed by a body that was about 2 feet long and a foot thick. The spade-like snout cut a path ahead, while two roughly circular bumpy appendages, one on either side of the cigar-shaped body, whirled around, propelling it forward much as a caterpillar tread moves a bulldozer. The Geiger counters almost went crazy as the creature came into full view. "The blasted thing's radioactive, Bill," the younger man said in astonishment. The head, except for the snout, had been virtually featureless. Now a section of the surface near the V-shaped projection slid back, for all the world like an opening steel shutter. Through the aperture, an eye, like a many-faceted gleaming crystal, focused on the two men. The shutter-like lid slid back, covering the eye except for the tiniest slit. The appendages began to revolve again, and the creature headed for the spaceship, moving like an old side-wheel steamboat. It circled the ship once, leaving a permanent wake behind it. Finally it stopped, opened its slit wide, and just stared at the ship as though hypnotized. "A Martian sand swimmer," the older man finally explained. "A few of them were spotted when the first expeditions landed. Practically nothing's known about them, since they're difficult to capture. Always located the same way, set the counters a clicking. There's one theory. They're not flesh and blood, but some kind of silicon metallic life." "Are they dangerous?" the younger man asked. The older man started to shrug, stopped, and pointed at the horizon. The sky was turning red, and a gathering dark mass, propelled by winds of hurricane force, seemed to gallop across the desert towards them. "Quick!" the older man ordered. "Into the outcropping of rocks. We'll never make the ship before it hits us." Utilizing grotesque hops, the two men floundered towards a nearby rock formation. They dived into a natural cave only seconds ahead of a shrieking maelstrom of sand, which reduced outside visibility to zero. The younger man wiped the dust from his eye plate, then gave a little shout and pounced upon an object on the floor of the cave. Making whooping noises, he straightened up. A gleaming golden pyramid, about 4 inches high, resting in the palm of his gloved hand. "A Martian artifact," the older man gasped. "It's priceless. Proof that civilization once existed on this planet. Looks like cast gold." "Remember, I found it," the younger man emphasized. There was a tinge of violet on his face, but it was hard to say whether it was the result of enthusiasm or the reflection on his viewing plate from the red sands. I don't have to share the proceeds of what the museums will give me for this with you. It isn't the same as a uranium strike." "The devil you say." The older man spat, advancing menacingly. "Share and share alike. That was our agreement, and you're gonna stick to it if I—" "The agreement was for uranium. Nothing was said about something like this," the younger man replied, moving towards the mouth of the cave. The sandstorm retreated until it became a thin red haze on the horizon. The air cleared, and abruptly the ship was visible outside. "Now look here," the older man reasoned. "That relic must be worth a fortune. There's plenty in it for both of us." The younger man, instead of replying, began plowing through the sand towards the spaceship, the golden pyramid clutched in his electrically heated mittens. "What are you up to?" the old man demanded sharply. "Oh, gonna try and leave me here, are you? Well, we'll see about that." The two men began a bizarre race for the ship, making fantastic leaps against the lighter gravity and landing to slide face forward in the slippery sands, then picking themselves up and starting for the ship again. The younger man reached the airlock first. He reached inside and pressed the button to close it. The fine sand that the storm had blown into the grooves of the lock slowed down its rate of closing and gave the older man time to slip past before it shut. Even as the air pressure began to rise in the cabin of the ship, he threw himself upon the younger man, and the two of them battled furiously, but ineffectually. Their reduced weight, coupled with the thickly insulated suits, deprived the blows of any authority. A tinny crash interrupted the argument. They simultaneously swung in the direction of the sound. Two mouths gaped as one in amazement. The strange sand swimmer that had appeared out of the desert sands had evidently entered the lock of the ship while they were in the cave. It now had rammed its plough-like head through the thin metal skin of the inner wall of the ship, exposing a layer of lead insulation. At the same time, the older man noted that his companion's face was flushed with violet. His anger melted with understanding. "Kid," he said almost kindly, "you've got radiation fever." The younger man wasn't listening. He was shouting and gesturing. The strange creature was apparently eating the lead insulation in the walls of the ship. It was grinding away with steel-hard rotary teeth, consuming quantities of lead at an alarming rate. The young man snatched a sampling of ore out of a leather bag and fired it at the creature. It bounced off, ricocheting about the room with the force of the throw. The creature scarcely noticed. Enraged, the young man dashed over and directed a powerful kick at the hard surface of the Martian life form. Despite its almost metallic texture, the creature was small, and the force of the kick sent it rolling towards the lock. Before it could recover, the young man raced over and gave it another kick that rolled it almost to the lock. The older man pushed the button that opened the lock, and a third kick propelled the creature out onto the desert sand. The young man grabbed a rocket gun from the wall and pumped a shell at the creature. He missed, and the explosion blew up a geyser of sand. Jim tried to grab the gun, but the younger man, his face almost purple with fever, evaded him and brought the butt down alongside his head. When he came to, the rockets of the ship were a cherry flicker in the sky. He didn't feel angry at the kid. Radiation sickness was something that could hit anyone at any time. He clicked on his SOS radio signal set. The powerful receivers on Phobos, one of the 2 moons of Mars, would pick it up and a rescue ship would follow, probably in only a matter of hours. Suddenly he realized that the sand swimmer was resting quietly in the sand, scarcely 12 yards away. Its midsection had turned a reddish hue and was beginning to glow. "It can't be possible," he thought to himself. "That crazy thing eats lead and digests it with the use of a radioactive pile in its stomach." It upset all concepts of life and intelligence. The life force that motivated the thing could be compared to a natural atomic engine. Though consumed by curiosity, he stayed his distance. There was no question in his mind that the kid's radiation sickness was the result of close contact with this creature. He didn't intend to get a dose of the same, even though his own radiation tolerance was evidently higher than the kid's. The glow in the midsection of the creature gradually diminished and then finally died away altogether. The shutter-like lid slid open and the crystal-clear eye regarded him. The sand swimmer's limbs began whirring around like tank treads, their head ploughed into the sand. In seconds it had disappeared. Cautiously Jim approached the hole. The soft sifting sand was already filling it in. Then something caught his eye. He stared a moment, caught his stomach, and rolled over on the sand, convulsed by paroxysms of laughter. There on the sand, on the sometimes treacherous but occasionally puckish red sands of Mars, the sand swimmer had laid a beautifully glowing golden pyramid.